Today we're once again back with the big box of radios from the Lancashire Car Club. So we did the Kerner 1100, Beta 1100 yesterday, which is absolutely excellent. So today, this is a Rotel 240 and no screws in it. Now, you know, these work great usually, as we all know. But you know, if you were wanting to do off-roading, which I'm assuming this car club does, I wouldn't want all these knobs and switches and bells and whistles. You get exactly the same performance with the Rotel 230, but less knobs. Now the Rotel 220 has a receive circuit less, so that's a different kettle of fish. So the Rotel 240, the Rotel 230 are the same board, which is also in the Harvard 420M, which I rave about, and is often overlooked. You know, like Harvards are crap in inverted commas. Well, the good buddy might be, but the rest of them, you know, tend to be pretty good. The mobiles I'm talking about. So I wouldn't want that number of knobs in a car, but there you are. The customer's the customer. But it is just a point. Don't think you've got to have this level of knobs to get the same performance. You can have a lot less knobs and a lot less faff. Now then, he's got two Rotel 240s in the box of repairs. So we've got on the serial number 2020 to 820. No transmit. I believe the added on board, possibly some kind of speech processor, may be the culprit. Yeah, right. Well, at least it's got a speaker in it. Yeah, well, we'll get rid of that. I'll look underneath and make sure there's no... Oh my goodness, what's this about? So that's the real switch, and that's the daft switch. Right, okay. And note all the bottom ones are broken. I don't see any need to start doing repairs to that, because I think it's going to be robust enough with the number of knobs it's got holding it together. So we better do some engineering work before we actually start looking at the radio. So I'll pause the video and do that. Right, so I've taken that board out, I've put the wiring back how I expect, and for the moment of truth I've switched it to PA, plug our mic in, oops, which is mic gain, 1 2 3 4 5. So we've got audio through the public address. So at the end of the day, about a fifth of the radio is then working. So let's put it onto extension speaker, and let's see. Oh, we need to back into CB. Now the CB, so the channel 9 switch was pushed in and knackered. The contacts are missing. I can't replace the switch, so that's a function which I was going to say isn't going to work. So what have I been doing? Oh, I bet it's high-low power, which is never going to work. Yeah, the contacts are missing out of the switch, so we're stuck. Shame. See what he says on the notes. I've forgotten. So when we buy scrap sets in, the scrap chassis, and they're often just a printed circuit board like that. So there's no switches or anything. Somebody else has had those. You know what people do? They take the fronts off, sell them on eBay. See, there's a switch there, but it's not the same type. So that was once a Colt 355, and they're pretty rare, and they're lovely little sets. But there we go. Back to the job in question. No transmit. I believe the added on board, possibly some torque, is probably the culprit, which it probably is. So that's not going to come back. And the trouble is, when we buy sets which are in one piece, which you could use for spares, they're usually very fixable. Sometimes more fixable than the ones that come in. So let's see if we've got transmit. We haven't got transmit. I don't think these have a TX light, which is a bit disconcerting. I may be wrong on that. I don't see enough of them. So what we'll do, we'll get the multimeter out. One day I'll get the Aldi one back instead of this little one. At least it has an off switch at both ends. So using one of Mr Chippie's crocodile clip leads, because the earth is on that strap there, let's see where the VCO is. So just make sure picture in picture's on, which it is now. So resistor 4. I'm not going to set this yet. I'm just going to see whether we've got transmit actually going into transmit. So you can see we've got 2 volts. We're on channel 2 actually. And going into transmit, we've got 1.3. So it is going into transmit. So now we'll try and set up the VCO. As ever, I'll have to get the instructions because I've done a few more sets since I last dug the instructions out. 40. So we start in receive. We're looking for 4 volts. And look at that, 4.01. How spot on is that? And then we're going to transmit. And it should be 4 volts. Now that isn't far enough out for it not to be transmitting, I don't think, but we've still set it up anyway, especially if I knew where the trimming tool was, which is there. So it's the red capacitor there. So we've now got 4 volts, go back to receive, got 4 volts, back into transmit, 4 volts, but virtually identical, aren't they? And then we turn over the page and we go to channel 1, and we should have on transmit, which we're now on transmit, between 1.9 and 2.5, and on receive, sorry, that was 1.8 to 2.5, and on receive is 1.9 to 2.5, which it is. So that's absolutely spot on. A little bit of adjustment to transmit there, but it hasn't brought transmit back. So that definitely needed looking at, but it's done. So what I'll do, I'll get my handheld, and we'll see whether it's actually transmitting 2 inches across the bench. In other words, whether it's generating the frequencies. I'll turn the squelch down, and we'll put this back on channel 20. Override the squelch, and it is. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the radio is transmitting to itself. It struck me, you know, if the high-low power switch has got no contacts inside it, I bet you it's not going to transmit. This is something I've not come up against. So turn the power off, let's get that switch out, and we'll link it up for high power. Managed not to lose the screws. Wouldn't like to try and find replacements of those. So push the switch out, And I'll tell you what we'll do, just as a temporary measure, we'll get Mr Chippie's crocodile clip lead, because we don't know which way is high and which way is low, and we'll short out 2 of the pins. Switch the power back on, key up, we've got transmit, we've got exactly 4 watts. So that means that that is in the high power position. Well, that was a good guess, Mr 21. So it's the top 2 contacts. So I'll just put a solder bridge across those, especially if my solder wasn't across in the chapel. So we'll pause the video. Right, that's soldered the link in, so we'll get back on with the tune-up. Power it back up. Now we've switched the power supply to 13.8 volts with a 1.6 amp maximum current. So we do have a transmit light. It's there. But the receive bulb has failed, so we'll replace that for them. So we're on channel 20. It's already doing the shade away from 4 watts. So we'll go up the transmit line up. Peak, peak. Can't get the tool in that one. Peak. So we want the other set of trimming tools. So we peak these initially. 3.9 watts, and get it back out. Now that's broken, so you know we're in trouble again. And that's broken. Yeah, this does, it really gets to me, this. These, how do we get replacement ones of these? Well, as it happens, somebody I know smashes up American illegal radios and passes on the cause to me. And it gets us out of the quagmire on these kind of sets. You know, I can't, Cybernet's gone. You've got to treat these with kid gloves. We'll get away with that one. We're going to have to replace that one. So we'll unsolder, I'll turn the power off, we'll unsolder the whole coil assembly. I can't believe that after all those years of successfully manufacturing radios, that the factory now makes solar panels. Should just pull out now. So we need to extract now. I'll have to go looking in the box of parts that David passed on to me. You know, when you end up putting all 3, you know, they have to be done with a plastic trimming tool. There's no way about it. And if you have to pay 18 quid for the set of trimming tools, that's what it has to be. Because you don't be forking out a £5 for a replacement coil every time. So, I'll go looking. Well, that's the core replace. That's the very last one I've got. Put it back in, tuned it up. I couldn't do the balance because the maximum I can get out of this set is 4 watts. So it's 4 watts on channel 20 and 3.9 on the band extremes of channel 1 and channel 40. That does sometimes happen, and it's happened on this occasion. So I'll show you that. And there's dead on 4 watts. Right, so now we want the meter to read 4 watts. It bangs across. This must be the psychological retune. Yeah, I've turned it up, mate. I've turned it up. Yeah, I've turned the meter up. There we go. And remember that only reads 4 watts when you're into a dummy load. When you put it on an aerial, it might read 1. It might bang across. It means absolutely nothing because it's relative to SWR and impedance. So it's a relative power meter. But these days, the modern sets, they're programmed power meters and they mean absolutely nothing. You can even make the radio do 100 milliwatts and it'll still bang across, you know, so it's not good. So we can't do low power because that feature is broken because of the broken switch. So we need to do deviation. Let's see how that is. Wallow. It's not far out, it's about 2.7. So just trim that. Ah, that one's in the wrong position, so it's going to sound funny. Now it's too high. That's probably about right. 1, 2, wallow. It's not quite loud enough. One, 2, wallow, wallow. That's spot on now. But it's balanced properly, which is the important thing. Can't see any distressed capacitors, which is always good. So I think we have concluded transmit apart from whether the radio is on frequency. Let's go over to this frequency display. Should be 2779125. You know what? This nearly as off frequency as that last one. Well out of spec. If it'll go. The answer is not quite, but it's in spec now. Just. If we've got a reference crystal on a scrap board, if I've got to put a new one in, we're not doing it. That's a different type of set. No, it's going to be much closer. I think we'll, if it sounds right on the scratchy corner test, we're okay. It is just in spec. Let's just see where it is on the band edge. Channel 1, 2760.125, 2660.057. Channel 40, 2799.12. Yeah, they're all exactly the same. So it's just in spec. Right. Receive. And what knob does what? Oh, good grief, mic gain wasn't at full. Let me just recheck that. Wallow. Now we'll have to redo that. 1, 2. There we go. What does that leave us with? RF gain needs to be at full, squelch down, volume with some. So we'll set up the signal generator to 27. Instead of 79125, I'll tune the receiver the slightly bit out that the radio is. We'll have it there. I don't want things to be lopsided. So at the moment, the sensitivity is absolutely fine. It's 0.85 microvolts. It'd be nice if it went under 0.5, which the chassis is capable of. So we'll start off with the detector. We'll go over to the oscilloscope. We will when we find it. That's the right camera. Let's put a meaningful trace up with the volume just across the extension speaker, and we just need to do the detector coil, which is there. Yeah, it was very slightly out. And let's go now to the cyanide meter. So we need to drop the signal to about 4 dB on there. As I keep saying, you can't be saturating the receiver, so you have it as low as you can work with. So the first front end coil is there. Good grief, that was way out. I can actually go down a scale. How strange. Now we'll put a bigger signal in as we do the IFs. Didn't like that one. I wonder if it's been screwdrivered. Be very careful with that, it's far too precision, but I've done it. Let's get a new reading. Wow, that's an improvement. It's 0.32 on that scale. That's try the other scale because we're between scales. We're often between scales. Well, it says 0.29 on one and 0.32 on the other. So we'll call it 0.3. That's a fantastic result. Oh, good. They will be pleased. So it was doing more or less 4 watts before, as soon as the switch was linked out, a broken switch. There's a deviation. I brought it down a fraction, but it's right now. The way this automatic gain control and all this works is set up right now. I won't be having to bellow into the microphone. So we'll put this front back on. Oh, I know what we want to do. We want to change that bulb, don't we? Yes, Mr. Tango. I'll pause the video and we'll get a new bulb in. Mr. Chippie's just been cleaning the front and the knobs, and I've just I'll take that picture off. This printed circuit board's seen better days, hasn't it? So I'm just going to go with the isopropyl alcohol and Mr. Chippie's toothbrush. That's a bit stubborn. Mr Chippie's looking at a guitar amplifier at the moment. It's got a very buzzy mains transformer, and it's not that it's under load even with the transformer disconnected. So what we've just done, I mean, the thing to do is to take the transformer out and put it in yacht varnish overnight. And what we've just thought of to enhance that is to put it in the ultrasonic cleaner. So I put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, which I've filled with water. We've put this in a plastic sundae cup, kind of thing you'd get at McDonald's, but these are new ones, which we have. And so we put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, and the transformer's in the cup. The cup's filled with the varnish, and the ultrasonic cleaner's filled with the water, so we're not running the thing dry. And you should see the bubbles that are now coming out of that transformer as the improved method of getting it to go in. I know people have pressure cooked these, but I'm sure this is going to be a very good technique. Amazing what you come out with when you're my age. Right, we'll better let that dry, and then it'll be time to, in the meantime, we could put the look better. So we'll put these knobs back on. We don't normally clean people's radios for them, but I'd had the front off this, and it was filthier than I like to see, so there you go, it got done. So we'll just turn those back to where they need to be. Good. Right, so we'll rejoin the video. I'll put the lids on, actually. May as well put the lids on, it's all finished. Just check this speaker works. Sent another Rotel 240, but the way I'm pulling these out of the box is absolutely random. So whether or not we look at his next 240 tomorrow or what, I don't know. Now I've got a problem, I've run out of screws. So we can't screw that together at this point. So we'll come back to this because I don't want to switch it on. I'll take it off the test gear, plug the roof aerial in, and we'll come back to it in half an hour when we're going to be sure the isopropyl alcohol's dried, and then we'll run through and do 19 Roger. So to conclude on the Rotel 240, I managed to find some screws on the bench. I did order some new ones. Some of these will be new, but they've gone astray out of the packet, so that's to the customer's advantage. So we won't be charging for those. Good, let's give it a go. There's the end of my mic. Put that old bulb in the bin. One and a Roger. Okay, that's not unusual. 19 Roger. Nope, nobody out there. Right, well, you know, as soon as I turn my back on this, it'll start chuntering. We'll probably be swearing, but it'll be chuntering. So we'll do a scratchy corner test later on. And did that just say something then? No. And there you are, Rotel 240 back in the land of the living. So shame I haven't got any switches we could cannibalise to have sorted out the high-low power switch, but other than that everything works as it should. So thanks for watching Rotel RVC240 from 1981.